When I was thinking about recreating my painting, I was thinking about wanting to compare my progress from a year ago. But here's the thing, the more I painted, the more I realized that these two paintings could not be compared. And that's because they came at a different time in history, well, my art history. And this is where, as you watch the next few episodes and see the painting evolve, I feel like each painting has a story of its own and a place in history in itself. Hi, I'm Jillian, and in my channel, you get to see how I help you to embrace the mess and magic of watercolor. I'm a psychologist turned full-time watercolor artist, and I'm passionate about bringing you on my journey and hopefully help you to discover yours. Let's think about the supplies that you're gonna need for this. Now, I would encourage you to use what you have so that you get familiar with the things that you already have in your toolkit and gain confidence over mastering watercolor through those tools. I cannot believe that our little garden has started to really take shape on this paper. So I'm starting off this episode just painting some sweet peas. So the thing about sweet peas is that you really just want to capture a blob shape. And using the transparency of watercolor, you can definitely layer over similar blob shapes after it has fully dried. So you're going to be using a lot of wet in dry technique. And I've used my square brush in the beginning, and then I've changed over to my thin round brush, and I always use my thin round brush for my thin strokes because I feel like this allows me to make sure that I don't have too much water in my brush, especially since I don't want so much water. So I find that it helps me to keep water control at bay. So that's something that you can try doing a lot more, especially if you struggle with water control. And after the sweet peas first light layer has dried, I basically added in a couple of darker layers just to define the edges of the petals. Now, this flower on the right edge of the paper is actually a very faint white flower, and white flowers are a real challenge because so many of the time we can't really paint white with watercolor. Well, you can use white gouache, but in this instance, I'm actually going to be using a very light wash of warm gray, which is a color from Sennelier. Or you don't have that color, you can always mix your complementary colors together. So examples of complementary colors include your red and green, or your orange and your cool blues. So these are examples of complementary colors, so you get a very nice sort of dirty muddy mix. Just use a really light transparent layer of that, and you can capture some of your white flowers that way. Now, the thing about white flowers is that you want to create a contrast between the white and areas that are not white. So in this case, I am making sure that my centers, which is the yellow, really stands out, and you can see I've added in some greens that are peeking out, some leaves that are cheekily kind of waiting on the side, and this also gives the illusion of something in the forefront, and in this case it's the white flowers. So take your time to kind of figure out your rhythm and your system when it comes to painting white flowers. So after the white flower layer has started to dry, I'm going in, adding in some depth. So I'm just going in and adding in that same consistency of muddy warm gray color, and I'm just putting it around the edges, and I'm also focusing it to be around the center a little and just peeking out from the center because I feel like here are where the shadows typically form. Let's go ahead and paint yet another sweet pea, and this time I'm using a more purpley blue kind of color, and I'm using the same strategy as I did with the pink ones, where I've used a light wash and then I've added in darker hue and values, and then using my thin brush I'm going in to kind of pull out the stem. I am adding a yellow little flower there, and at this stage of the painting I want you to be clear of how you're using the space in your paper, because we can see that it's starting to grow more and more, so it's more and more crowded. So start thinking about the way in which you're utilizing space. Now, while I'm waiting for that yellow bloom to dry, I'm going in and going around seeing if I need to add a bit more dimension across some of the other flowers, maybe even add an additional petal there for my sweet pea. And sometimes this is also the tricky part where we want to fuss over our previous existing flowers, so the danger point is to try not to overdo it. I feel like when you're painting loosely, less is always more. So now that it's dry, I'm just going in and I'm just adding in some orange actually, because I feel like it matches with some of the other yellow flowers that had pops of orange. Now I'm sorry if my brush happens to be blocking the view, but I hope that this was a very fun session for you, where you got to see that in this short span of time we got to create 3 little flowers. And this is also me showing you that it is so easy to just show up and just decide to paint 1 or 2 small elements to your painting, slowly add to that instead of seeing a huge piece of paper as an undertaking. And this here is an A3 size paper. So I hope that this has been fun for you as much as it has been fun for me to create. I can't wait for you to come on back and of course paint together with me in the next episode. Bye!